is strength beyond ourselves when we work together to serve others. May we put aside our own personal interests, work with integrity and openness, striving to create a community that supports its people and the environment. Let us, in a moment of quiet, focus on why we are here. We give thanks for the wisdom of the past, look for opportunities in the present, and accept the challenges of the future. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou katoa, kia pai te hare. Thank you, everyone.
Just some brief housekeeping notes. So emergency procedures, exits out to the front. I won't spend too much time because most people are reasonably familiar with the emergency procedures. In the event of tsunami warning, we have to head up the hill. Bathroom facilities out to the side.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to our council meeting. Just a reminder that we are of course being live streamed and recorded. I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge that this week has been the trial after the Christchurch mosque attack, and really would like to acknowledge the courageous Muslims who have been brave enough to give their victim impact statements this week. This atrocity is something that we will never forget, and it brought New Zealanders together in a show of solidarity for our Muslim community to stand as one against terrorism and in support of all members of our diverse community. So we are them and they are us, and we'll all be thinking of them tomorrow, I'm sure, when the sentencing is made. We'll now move into the formal proceedings of our council meeting. There are no apologies today, so great to have a full house. Welcome everybody, welcome to all the staff, and also welcome to our guests from the Hawke's Bay Airport, Chief Executive Stuart Ainsley and Chair of the Board Wendy Harvey. So welcome. Are there any conflicts of interest? No, excellent, and we don't have any public forum today. Announcements by myself. I would just like to take a moment to talk about the fact that we are, of course, now back in Alert Level 2 in response to COVID-19, and acknowledge that this has seen an impact on our local community, both individuals and business owners. We're also conscious that the wage subsidy is due to end probably for most people at the start of next month. Although it has been extended for businesses, it's more than likely that will mainly impact Auckland businesses and not our local businesses. So very conscious of the effect that may have on some of our local community. For those that are in a position to do so, I really encourage you to go out and support our local businesses. As a council, we have been tracking week on week the results and the financial activity for our local businesses, and there has certainly been a drop since we moved into Alert Level 2. So if you can, in whatever means is available to you, support your local dairy or your local cafe, or perhaps take the opportunity to go out and explore your own backyard and go on one of our local tours, because it's not something that we would probably normally think to do, and now would be a fantastic time to do that. I also wanted to give a brief update on our 2 council recovery funds that we put in place to assist businesses and our community with the impact of COVID-19. So we have our overall recovery projects fund of $500,000, of which we've had some incredible applications, with approximately $250,000 being allocated so far, both to support initiatives that will generate employment for our rangatahi, and also to support some local events. So again, to get our community out and about and enjoying and supporting these businesses. The second fund is our Te Pua Waitanga, which is around communities going out and beautifying our city with plantings and creating some really lovely green spaces. So again, we've had some fantastic applications to that, and I would encourage community organisations, businesses and individuals alike to go onto our website and have a look at both of those funds, because we would welcome further applications. We really would like to assist in any way we can to stimulate the local economy and ensure that our local businesses and organisations are well positioned as we work towards reducing the impact of COVID-19. I would now like to ask if there are any minor matters not on the agenda. No? Okay. And are there any announcements by management? No? Whizzing through it. Moving on to confirmation of minutes. The first minutes are from the ordinary meeting of council held on Thursday the 16th of July. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Bogue. All those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Secondly, we have the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on Friday the 24th. It is listed here twice. That's just an administrative error that it's pulled it through twice, so we'll just move one of those. So moved by Councillor Price, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And lastly, the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of council held on Wednesday the 12th of August, moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Tapani. All those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Excellent. So I would now like to welcome our guests who are here to present to us on the Hawke's Bay Airport Statement of Intent 2020-21. Welcome. And for the councillors present who may not have had the opportunity to meet Wendy Harvey before, she has recently been appointed as the chair of the board, replacing Tony Porter. So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. I've been told to bring this right forward, so. Okay, tēnā koutou katoa, no mai haere mai, good morning. Look, it's not the best job in the world to be sitting here talking to you about an SOI for this year based on passenger numbers of 317,000 people. But unfortunately, here we are. And can I assure you that as we go through the SOI this morning, there is very much an alignment between the SOI and what I call our strategy for recovery. So, and just opening and before I pass over to Stuart, I just think it's really important that we go back over the last 12 to 18 months and just take stock of where the airport's actually been, because it's really easy to just sit there and focus on COVID, but our challenges started quite some time ago, and really the beginning of 2019 when we had the voluntary administration of Arrow. And we'd always recognised that as a strategic risk, and we were pretty well prepared for that. And we had our own company up and running, and we brought the contract back in-house, and we thought we were doing okay. And then in October, we had Jetstar announcing that they were going to be departing from regional airports, us included. And I think what people don't appreciate is that that event in itself, we were forecasting a reduction in passenger numbers of approximately 100,000 people per year at that stage. And the reason why I raise it is that what became really clear to the company and the board was that actually we needed to diversify away from being solely reliant on aeronautical revenue for our income. And so our strategy was very much aligned with that. And then in March we experienced COVID. And then in March, we also had an announcement by Airways that they were intending to withdraw resourcing from the control tower. Now that in itself, you might say, isn't that significant, but when you're at a time where you're actually in crisis and you're asking your management team to be pulled away from basically no planes coming in to dealing with consultation over that, we've just had event on top of event on top of event. But throughout all that, one of the things that I'd really like to acknowledge today is that as we've been rolling with the punches, we've had absolute support from all of our shareholders, and we'd really like to acknowledge and thank you for that. Not the least of which is the $9 million loan that you've agreed to extend to us. And the importance of that, to me at least, is that without that, the conversation we'd be having today would be quite different, because part of our recovery relies on getting the terminal complete and our ability to recover that money through our pricing. So thank you for that. And just before I hand over to Stuart, I just wanted to acknowledge Stuart and his team, because throughout of all of this, they've been absolute rock stars. They've been realistic about what's been going on around them. They've stayed positive throughout, and they've always had an eye on the future. And so what you see today and what Stuart's about to take you through is very much a strategy aligned on recovery and seeing us back in black in a couple of years' time. So at this stage, I'll hand over to Stuart, and hopefully once he's finished, we can answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Marina.
Morena.
Well, look, before we start, I just wanted to put a little bit of focus on what our April looked like from a COVID perspective. I think this just puts what life in an airport or an airline is like into perspective. We had during April we had 15 aircraft movements, 63 car park transactions, and not much more over 100 odd passengers coming through the terminal. So that sort of puts the whole thing into perspective, really, about the massive impact that COVID has had on the aviation industry, and we're obviously not out of the woods yet. Just wanted to put this slide up as some context. This is actually an airline metric. It's basically passengers times distance travelled. You can see that deep retraction that we're all aware of in terms of COVID, but the main thing I wanted to really draw out of this is the range of uncertainty that exists in the aviation sector. It's probably going to take us 12 to 18 months to really start to climb out of this, and I think every airport and airline around the world right now is facing all the same sort of challenges. What this pretty simply means is that there's a lot of aircraft sitting on the ground doing nothing. So it just shows the sort of range of uncertainty that we'll have moving forward. But just looking at our own forecast, the red line at the top was our forecast before we entered into COVID, and you can see the reforecasting and the big gap that's apparent pre-COVID and after the first wave of lockdowns in level 4 and 3. You can see the tail-off effect of Jetstar, but that really reflects the sort of challenge that we have in terms of the deep retraction in our revenue moving forward. And just reiterating that the next 12 to 18 months are very uncertain. Someone just said to me as we came into the room there that Air New Zealand have made some of their announcements today about their results, their financial results, and they don't look anything like what they thought they were looking like a year ago. So just moving on to our SOI financial forecasts. On this slide here, in terms of revenue, you'll see that revenue actually starts to climb, faster than the relative retraction in passenger numbers, and that's predominantly because we'll be heading into a price resetting with our airlines in October this year, and then once we move into the completion of the terminal, the pricing will step up again. We'd actually started that process in February, just before COVID, but we stalled it because we felt it wasn't really a conducive environment to be consulting on increasing aircraft landing charges. In terms of our expenses towards the end of the financial year, and you'll see this right across the whole industry, airlines and airports have made significant reductions in their fixed cost bases. We've taken around about 30% off our fixed cost base so that we can start off the new financial year with a bit more certainty. We've disestablished round about 7 roles, and we've accelerated in sourcing our fire service. Our fire service was outsourced to Task Protection Services for over 20 years actually, so now they're directly employed by Hawkesbury Airport. That's just helped us set the new base moving forward from a cost perspective. The other thing I wanted to point out is it was a year of 2 halves leading up to COVID. We were performing very well financially, but we're ending the year with a slight loss, noting that we've not included the write-off of the terminal there at 1.37 million. So managing our costs moving forward, like everyone in this post-COVID environment, has become a big focus for us. In terms of balance sheet, obviously this is one area that it's put a lot of pressure on our strategic platform moving forward. You'll see that it's going to take us a couple of years to recover back to, you know, more positive ratios. That recovery, we believe, though, could actually come back quicker, but we think it's prudent to have a forecast that is got a bit of buffer in it, so that, you know, as we've seen in August, we've faced this second lockdown, so we think we're prudent in our forecasting. I don't want to dwell too much on our strategic framework. We've talked about that before in the past, but as we moved into the new year, we really started to focus on revenue diversification, and that's something that's become critically more important for us. So, like property development and partnership, and so that we can be innovative about how we drive these new revenue streams, is something that we'll be focusing on a lot more over the 3-year statement intent period. Just wanted to touch a little bit about our capital expenditure. Obviously, when you get a retraction in the amount of aeroplanes you've got and the amount of people, well, you don't need as large car parks, or you don't need as many aprons to park aeroplanes in. So we have been able to defer some of that capex out. We're committed to obviously completing our terminal expansion, so we've got the basis for good growth. And it's important to note that we've maintained some of that critical capex for, like, maintaining our runways and critical assets, because without a runway we can't land any aircraft, you know. So we're all looking forward to a big celebration, I think. So the opening of our terminal in February is something that we're all really looking forward to. You'll see the roof line appearing in the new terminal, and we are very excited about the forecourt, and I was listening to his points about greening of the city. We've taken some of our inspiration for our new forecourt entry and first and last impressions into the region from Marine Parade, and we've been proud to be working with Mana Ahuriri, Ngāti Kahungunu and Jacob Scott, and putting some of that cultural overlay in both inside the terminal and outside the terminal. So we're looking forward to seeing that come into life in February, and I'm sure we'll have a big regional celebration when that happens. Just wanted to move on now to some of our focus around revenue diversification. So property has been something that for a long time we've been looking to advance our property portfolio. The airport has a history of doing a lot of ground leases, but aspirationally where we want to really move into is doing our own property developments. Obviously the challenges on our balance sheet in the short term put some brakes on that, but I think in this SOI we're looking at those enabling funds to allow us to get the strategy off the ground. We're working on a property development precinct. We'll be going out publicly with a public consultation on our 20-year master plan document and advancing our notice of requirement through the district plan process. Just on this slide, I just wanted to highlight this. This is really on a page our 20-year master plan outlook. So first point I'd like to really kind of stress is that long-term safeguarding of the airport. So making sure that we can extend our runway when we need to extend our terminal and apron facilities. Being able to maximise and have flexible use of the land from a revenue point of view, and also just setting the long-term future direction of the airport business. That blue square that you can see at the bottom of the runway there, that's actually a to-scale representation of the solar farm, which I'm going to talk about in a few seconds, but that's a 10 megawatt solar farm. So it kind of shows the relativity of the whole land mass of the airport. You can see those blue areas are areas that over that 20-year period we look to advance for commercial purposes in line with our master plan. You know, from things that we've been saying publicly and in other council meetings, that our sustainability framework is really important to us. We see that we've got an important role in looking after the Ahuriri estuary. We're really proud to have achieved level 1 carbon accreditation, so we've mapped all our carbon, and this year we'll be looking to move to the next stage, which is reduction in our carbon footprint. We see the solar farm project as a big platform to help us advance to carbon neutrality, so that's one of the key drivers of that strategy. The other thing is we advance our property development portfolio. We want to set the tone, and we want to look at, you know, can we have building stock that actually has like green rating credentials, for example. So these are some of the things that we're focused on, and over the next year you'll start to see things like EV chargers and bike storage facilities popping up on the airport, so that we can play our part in the broader connection with the region there. Just moving on to the solar farm. So, you know, a number of months ago we signed a joint venture with Centralines so that we could advance the feasibility of the solar farm, and this week we're pleased to announce that we have signed up a technical partnership with Vector PowerSmart. So Vector PowerSmart so far have actually built the largest solar farm in New Zealand. Our aspirations are, we believe there's a strong commercial basis there to supply energy back onto the grid ultimately, and grow a solar farm in stages up to potentially greater than 10 megawatts. We could be the first carbon neutral airport in New Zealand. In fact, we could actually have the largest solar farm in New Zealand if we progress that initiative quickly in line with what we need to do from a resource consent perspective. And look, last slide, last but definitely not least, partnership, as I said, is a core part of our strategy, and I just wanted to sort of put some focus back onto our amazing ambassadors, and they all came back just after COVID. We were all queuing back up the door, wanting to get back into it, and we had to send them all back home again, unfortunately. But they've been a really successful part of our strategy around working with the community. They've helped us with some of our customer service metrics, all keen and eager and playing a part. But we also wanted to focus around the relationships we've built through sponsorship and other partnerships. All these important businesses and parts of the region where we've got like the Art Deco Festival and Horse of the Year and Export NZ. So all these things that we are proud to be a part of. But I wanted to finish on this note. We've talked a lot about our revenue diversification, but fundamentally we're an airport. We want to see the airport continue to grow and prosper. I think from an air services development perspective, that's an area that regionally we can all work together a lot smarter on, and it's something that we've been looking at how we do that. So, whether it's Napier City Council or Hastings District Council or Hawkesbury Regional Council, I think we've got to work a lot smarter on how we can bring more aircraft seat capacity to the region as a whole, and we'll be working on a strategy as to how we can do that with one voice. So that's really all I had to say, and we'll leave the floor open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Wendy. Any questions, councillors?
Councillor Bogue.
Hi, yes, thank you very much, and a great report, and welcome, Wendy. And yep, no, it's really good to see you moving forward. Just a couple of questions. With your projections, I mean, you obviously don't have a crystal ball to look into, but are you assuming that the borders are going to be open, that COVID's going to be eliminated, or what factors, how do you factor those kinds of issues into your projected income for next year?
Thank you. That's a really great question. Look, when we do our forecasting, we're always obviously looking at those high, medium, low forecasts. In this case, we've taken a base forecast that we've taken quite, I would say, a conservative and maybe even a pessimistic view on. I would say that our forecast outlook, it doesn't assume that the borders are going to open up quickly. It doesn't assume that the Trans-Tasman's going to open up, say, before the middle of next year. And it probably also allows some buffering of the, you know, the effect we've just seen with the Auckland level 3 lockdown as well. So, you know, notwithstanding there might be a few more of these type of shocks through the next 12 to 18 months, we think our forecasts are fairly realistic and will absorb a bit of pressure, you know.
Just one other question. The loss of the air traffic control centre, how has that affected the airport?
So far it hasn't, because there's really been no change. The air traffic control tower has been managed exactly the same way it was. But what we actually did in Hawkesbury Airport led this off. Actually, we formed a group with New Plymouth and Gisborne, and we are working through with Airways hand in hand on a collaboration so that we can do a broader aeronautical study, and that study will determine the risk and the safety case for any changes to air traffic control across those 3 airports. At the end of the day, it's the final call is up to the regulator as to whether he's going to accept that safety case. So, look, I'm quietly confident that there's a smarter way of doing air traffic control into the future, and before we jump ahead and decide what that solution is, we work through the process of the aeronautical study.
Councillor Tapani.
Kia ora kōrua. So just an extension on Councillor Bogue's question, really. I'm conscious that the Ebola virus took nearly 40 years to be removed from its host country, and we're just at the beginning of a COVID pandemic. And I didn't notice in the presentation any impacts around biological protections on our airports going forward as a result of pandemic response. Are there any indicators coming around costs that may be loaded upon our regional airports to help mitigate future pandemic concerns?
Yeah, that's another great question. So about in the last 12 months, there was actually quite a lot of focus on regional security screening, and probably within the next 12 to 18 months, notwithstanding COVID, we would have probably moved into a space where we would have seen like normal, like passenger screening happening. But I'm of the view that the industry in the next sort of 24 months, you'll start to see some shifting in, like screening of passengers and bags and things like that, more towards the health bias. It's hard to say what that looks like right now, but if you look at a lot of the larger international airports that have already well advanced, their technology and looking at processes and contactless processing and things like that. So I think we will see some shift, but it's obviously going to fall out of some government policy at some point in the future.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No, therefore, could I have a mover and seconder that we receive the 2020-21 revised draft statement of intent of the Hawke's Bay Airport? Thank you, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Brown. Did you wish to speak to the motion?
Just very briefly, thank you, Stuart and Wendy. Again, a very comprehensive report, and obviously you've taken a great deal of time to consider the future in the next few years, so congratulations, and I think all going well, we'll see those passenger numbers return in the next couple of years maybe. Thanks.
Absolutely, thank you.
Councillor Brown?
And Graham said it all.
Did anyone else wish to speak to the motion before I put it? No? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much,
Thank you very
Wendy and
much.
Stuart. And I would just like to acknowledge, obviously, the challenges that you've been dealing with throughout this year already, and obviously it's not over yet. So your team's doing an incredible job, and we're here to support you in any way that we can. So thank you for
Thank you very
coming
much.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, some of you may have noticed the next two agenda items are actually the agenda items that are sitting in the reports that have come through from the Māori Committee. So they weren't meant to be coming on here as papers for debate as part of this part of the agenda. But there will be an opportunity when we move through to the standing committee reports after this to have any further debate on those. So that being the case, we will move to what is agenda item 4, section 10A, the Animal Dog Control Report. And I would invite Rachel Horton to come up and speak to the report, please. Welcome, Rachel. Page 92.
Thank you.
Good morning. This report is provided to you pursuant to Section 10A of the Dog Control Act. It's required under statute to provide this information to the Department of Internal Affairs and to make it publicly available. My recommendation in this case is that the Council adopt the Animal Control Report, and that we will ensure the report is submitted to the Secretary of Local Government and published in accordance with the requirements under the Act. So the Animal Control team operate under a number of acts, the Dog Control Act being one of them. They also operate under the Impounding Act, and as well as the Council's Dog Control Policy and Bylaw. And a focus of their work is balancing the enforcement work that's required to keep the community safe and to respond to incidents involving dogs, but together with educating the general public on safe dog handling practices, and also to assist dog owners themselves to be compliant and with the requirements of the Dog Control Act, but also to be responsible and good dog owners, and they themselves keep the community safe. So to do this, the Animal Control team have quite a significant safety program that they administer. Over 2,000 people have been through that program in the last year, 18 months, and this is a program that's run in schools for children to understand not only how to keep them safe if they encounter an aggressive dog, but also how to be good dog owners themselves. We've also extended that program to community workers like district health nurses and postal office workers, and those people who are going into homes that might contain dogs and to keep themselves safe. The team also do a significant amount of one-on-one work with dog owners. So when they can, they prefer to always work with a dog owner to help them comply with the Act rather than take an enforcement approach in the first instance. And so some of the work that the Animal Control team do in that area is they will visit the addresses, they will check fences and gates, they will install running wires for dog owners to keep dogs on properties where there isn't good fencing. They will give them advice on barking and behavioural matters. And so they do an enormous amount at a one-on-one level with dog owners, which is often not reported on. Moving to the statistics in the report, you'll see that overall there has been a drop in some of the statistics, and how much of that is attributed to COVID, I couldn't speculate, but it will have had an impact The good news is that we've got an increase in the number of registered dogs, up 458 from the year before, which shows that dog owners are understanding the need to register their dog and to show good dog ownership in that way. And the good news is also that there's a decrease in public safety incidents overall, and that is really, really encouraging. However, you will also see that there is an increase in the number of infringement offences, and that is less encouraging in that it indicates that we still have quite a bit of non-compliance and poor dog ownership in some areas. And you'll also notice that the impounding and rehoming statistics are down, and I would say that would be directly related to COVID, people being at home with their dogs rather than their dogs needing to roam away from the property. Any questions on the report?
Councillor Bogue, followed by
Yes.
Councillor Tapani.
Oh, thank you very much. I just wondered, are there any special rules or regulations or recommended behaviours around the different alert levels for dog owners and dealing with their dogs and other dogs when they're out and about?
No, not that we have seen. The provisions under the Dog Control Act and our bylaw pretty much cater for all of that anyway, and that the premise, the whole principle is that dog owners need to have their dog under control at all times anyway. So it well caters for that for us when we're in restricted times.
And I guess further to that, in terms of there being strict rules and regulations as such, no, there's not, but we've certainly in alert level 3 and 4, and it would apply to alert level 2 as well, encouraging dog owners to perhaps, discourage or not allow people to pet their dogs and things like that, just in case there is any risk of transmission. So it's more of a advice and encouragement as opposed to something that's formally regulated. Councillor Tapani.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. I know that over the last few years our dog control team have lifted their presence within the community, and that includes education and signing campaigns across the city. So I preface that because I noticed at a 480 number of dogs increase, is that indicative of the fact that we have a stronger campaign within our community, or have we just had 480 dogs wander into the region and decide to settle here? So where do we think those 480 are coming from? Is that a result of our engagement or a byproduct of influx into the region?
I think our unders and overs of dogs, those people who are getting new dogs and those dogs that are dying, keeps the numbers reasonably, or moving out of the area, keeps the numbers reasonably static. I'd like to think that this is as a result of our work, but I also think that the animal control team have been quite proactive in chasing unregistered dogs. And chasing up people who have not complied or registered within the time frame, and they've done quite a bit of work around that space. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Crystal.
There is an ability to get a reduction in your registration by being a responsible owner. How do people go about doing that? Because I know it's a question a lot of people ask because they don't understand what they have to do.
So there is a number of things. They can take a course. There is providers who help people to understand good dog ownership. It is based on past compliance as well, so showing that they have, regularly registered their dog, that there's been no major incidents involving their dog ownership, and also that they can carry out a questionnaire that the animal control team make available to them, sort of a self-questionnaire that they follow and can show. It helps to educate them on good dog ownership. So those 3 components.
So they have to do the course as well? Or
Not always, and sometimes we've found that the providers aren't consistent in the courses, so we would look to the other 2 to provide them with the criteria of being a responsible dog owner. I think the past compliance history would be the most important category of that, but there is discretion that's applied over this by the animal control team. Yeah.
and so you have to do this a certain time before registration comes out, do you? Or?
You can do it any time and apply to be a responsible dog, and then you'll get the discount when you go to register your dog, which is at a set time in the year. Yeah.
I did just want to take an opportunity to say that I appreciated the detail around the euthanized dogs in the report. I don't recall that being there previously, and it was really useful to actually have some background as to why those dogs had been euthanized, because it's always a statistic that we don't like to see. So thank you for that. That was really good. So the recommendation before us is that we adopt the Napier City Council Annual Dog Control Report 2019-20, and that the report be submitted to the Secretary for Local Government and published in accordance with the Dog Control Act 1996. I see Councillor Tapani was very keen to move that. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Crystal. Did you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Tapani?
No, thank you, Your Worship. Well informed.
Good. Councillor Crystal?
I'd just like to say it was International Day of the Dog yesterday, so
It
it's
was.
appropriate.
Was there anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? No? Councillor
I'd just
Taylor?
like to make a comment that you actually alluded to, and Rachel, in the reduction of some of the statistics. It's encouraging to see a lower number of impounded dogs and a lower number of euthanized dogs. So I think those are pretty positive. So congratulations.
Indeed.
Councillor McGrath?
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge the work that the team do out of the depot down there. It's a 24/7 job, and often not the best of situations that they walk into, but I think they do the council proud.
Very well said, Councillor McGrath. Okay, there being no further speakers, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Rachel. Moving on to next agenda item, which is page 100, and it's the Marine Parade Reserve, the amazing dinosaur discovery. And this has come to us straight at council due to the dates and the timing. So just to explain why that hasn't gone through the standard double debate process. And I'll just sort of move to the agenda item. And was Deborah going to speak to that? I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Essentially, I think this is a great event that we have coming here for our community, and as I said earlier in my opening, particularly in these challenging times, I think this is great for community spirit and well-being to have some things like this for people to head along to. So I'm not even sure that there's anyone here that can answer any questions, but if there is some questions, then John looks like he's getting ready to answer questions, so I will open up the floor to questions. Councillor Tapani.
This really is a question for Zirka, but good luck, John. I just note that I'm assuming that obligations under level 2 COVID will be addressed by the circus organisers themselves. There's no mention of it in their safety here. Sorry, I know you really can't answer on their behalf, but I'll chuck the question to you anyway.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and we'll juggle that one around a wee bit. But look, the responsibility for meeting any level alert requirements does fall on the circus. We will remind them of their obligations in that regard.
No further questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and looking very sharp there with your new haircut. He's lost for words. I don't think I've ever seen it. Right, any further questions? Councillor Mawson.
Through you, Madam Mayor. John, just one. Why Marine Parade? Why not something like Anderson Park? Was there a reason behind that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure what the reason is there. Certainly Zirka have set up on Marine Parade in the past. Sometimes the timing of the event can exclude Anderson Park because it is quite wet and boggy during this time of the year, and certainly in the past with other circuses we haven't allowed them access to Anderson Park for that very reason. But certainly, they have some considerations around health and safety, setting up the through traffic of pedestrians and cyclists. So that's a real consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, the officer's recommendation obviously is quite detailed in terms that it's going into, but essentially we're approving this to go ahead for a period of no more than 21 days on the designated site on the Marine Parade, and I see Councillor Price has jumped in to move that, seconded by Deputy Mayor Brosnan. Thank you very much. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Price?
Just briefly, I think it's all been said, but I'll follow my speaker. This is outstanding for the city, and the location, I think, has been successful before, so why change it? And we need more things like this. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, just a question, another question. I just wondered, is this going to affect the Sunday market? Often events that are held on the Marine Parade mean the market has to close.
It's at the opposite end of Marine Parade, beside
Oh.
the aquarium.
Might help it.
I'll just check if Deputy Mayor Brosnan would like to speak now, or hold your right to speak. Councillor McGrath. Excellent.
I just also support this, and from what Councillor Price has said, we often get asked about activities for children and youth in our town, not just the big rugby matches for the adults. So I think this ticks quite a good box with the child-friendly lens run across it.
Good. Councillor Tapani, yes.
Thank you, Worship, through you. So this is more of a comment. Given your announcement at the beginning of the meeting around us as residents seeking every opportunity to engage in activities within our region, this, along with other activities in our region, are we going to be supporting a list of activities to do in Hawke's Bay on our Facebook page to help promote and get people in and out amongst our community, or has it already been done through our recovery projects?
I think that's a great suggestion. I know that there has been some reporting done on events and programs that we've supported through our Recovery Projects Fund, but I think it would be good to have something on our website that lists upcoming events in general, if it's not already there. So we'll note that as an action. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Brosnan, did you wish to speak as the seconder?
No, just to say I concur with all the points made. We have a very keen operator here, and it's great to be able to support them, and I think they really appreciate us bringing this to council and in a timely fashion.
Thank you. No further speakers. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Moving on to the unconfirmed minutes of the Hawke's Bay Drinking Water Governance Joint Committee from February 2020, page 106 on our agendas. And Councillor Price, so you're on that committee, aren't you? Did you wish to speak to the minutes in any way? And I think Councillor Crystal, were you the second? Oh, okay, I had that completely wrong. Councillor Simpson and Councillor Taylor.
I'll just let my hand come down.
Simpson and Crystal, there we go. I had one of them right. You were on it last term. Councillor Simpson? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, just the minutes just reflect it was the inaugural meeting for the triennium. It established the committee structure. The most significant point in the agenda was the committee's activation of a submission about the new water regulating authority, and the committee has since met again and approved those minutes and looked at the new water regulation, the new water reforms of the central government. So yeah, it's an active committee, meets quarterly, and I'm sure we'll hear more over the next wee while.
Sure we will. Did you wish to add anything, Councillor Crystal?
We also talked about the tank plan as well on that, so that was submissions on that.
Great, thank you. Would you like to, Councillor Simpson and seconded by Councillor Crystal. You probably have nothing further to add.
No, I think I've said
Did
it
anyone
all.
else wish to speak to the minutes at all? Very good, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now moving on to our reports and recommendations from the standing committees. First up is the Sustainable Napier Committee held on the 30th of July 2020, and the agenda item here was the Napier City Council submission to the tank plan change. Just open that up if there was any questions of anybody before we move to accept that recommendation. No? Okay then, so do I have a mover and seconder for, thank you Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Price. Did you wish to speak to that at all?
Oh, just to say it's a significant piece of work. Council's made a good submission on the tank change, and we certainly support the commentary of staff.
Thank you. Very good. No further speakers on it, and I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Moving on to the Future Napier Committee, held 30th July 2020. Now, I will go through these as a group. If there's any that you did wish to debate further, just stop me and then I'll leave that out and we'll come back to it. So first report being the District Plan Review Policy Approach of the Draft Plan, followed by the District Plan Review Draft Chapter Special Zone, then the adoption of the Napier City Mobile Sign Bylaw, Civic Precinct Project Update, Anna Spencer Statue, Napier Recovery Funding, and the Resource Consent Activity Report. Do I have a mover for those reports? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brosnan, seconded by Councillor Wright. Did either of you wish to speak to that? No? Very good. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Next we have the reports from the Sustainable Napier Committee held on the 6th of August 2020 with the Three Waters Reform Programme Memorandum of Understanding report. Did anyone wish to open that for questions or debate? No, I'll ask for a mover and seconder please. Councillor Price and Councillor Crown, thank you. Did either of you wish to speak to that? No. We'll put the motion. All those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And then we have the reports from the Māori Committee held on the 14th of August 2020. Again, the Three Waters Reform Programme Memorandum of Understanding and the Māori Committee Mechanics, which was an update following the council meeting of the 16th of July 2020. Devi.
Through you, Madam Chair, just in relation to the Māori Committee Mechanics, and apologies, the reason why you're seeing some of these reports pulling through several times is how we're trying to manage the process in the absence of our Info Council functionality. So there's a certain irony to what's happened with the agenda this time round, given that this report is coming through. But I did want to mention, so this has now been double debated, but the recommendation to consider is that was brought in the new reports to Council. There has been a small update to the recommendation following what was discussed at Council previously and at the Māori Committee recommendation, particularly around decisions of Council. So sorry, just pointing that out through you, Madam Chair.
So that was obviously providing some clarification that there had been a previous commentary in this report that double debate would now be compulsory. There would be no opportunity for anything to come directly to Council, and that was completely separate to the actual paper around the Māori Committee Mechanics, and it was taken as an opportunity to sort of provide some clarity around that. Since then, we have actually updated the wording around that to state that double debate is, of course, always the preference. However, as our standing orders provide for, there is still the opportunity under extraordinary circumstances for a paper to come straight through to Council, as we had with the dinosaur one today, where timeframes necessitated that. So just providing some clarity around that. Were there any questions?
Yes, just a question. Where does this fit in with the earlier item that we deferred? That was earlier in the agenda.
So this is a reconsideration of that earlier item with the tweak to the recommendation in line with the discussion that was had at that earlier time.
So we're actually voting on the recommendations on an earlier page? Sorry, what page would that be?
84.
Page 84, thank you.
Yeah, what page is the agenda?
So the change is only around providing that additional clarity around decision of councils and the double debate process.
But what we're actually voting on is the
Is, yes,
recommendation
page
on page
84.
84.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. If there's no questions, I'm happy to move these reports from the chair, seconded by Councillor Tapani. I don't wish to speak to this anyway, Councillor Tapani, no? Right, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Now move to reports under delegated authority. First being the documents signed under delegated authority. Do we have any questions around any of these? Pretty straightforward.
What page, sorry?
134. So three documents sitting under this particular agenda item. Do I have a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Brosnan and Councillor Mawson, thank you. No? No. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Next we have tenders let on page 135. So receive the tenders let for the period 27 June to 31 July. Any questions of council officers on this? No. Do I have a mover and seconder? Thank you, Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Crystal. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So I'd now like to actually adjourn this council meeting. We do have some public excluded items. However, we also have an extraordinary council meeting scheduled to follow on, which is an open agenda. So I'll adjourn this council meeting and we will move into our extraordinary council meeting to debate and adopt the annual plan 2020-21, which is a separate document on the hub.